For as long as humans have been around, they've been trying to figure out how to live longer, healthier lives. One author might have an answer. Dan Buettner has written a new book called The Blue Zone's Solution. And he tells us what the world's longest living humans have eaten over the last century. He joins us, as well as CBS News chief medical correspondent Dr. Jon LaPook. Friends, both of you.
Yes.
Jon, welcome back. Dan.
I feel like I have some credibility.
Dan, welcome here. Oh, please.
I am a big fan. I will just say it right now.
You both have lots of it, and I am too, based on what I've read so far. Dan, first of all, what is a blue zone?
It was a 10-year project with National Geographic to first identify pockets around the world, we call them blue zone areas, where people either have the highest life expectancy or the most high centenarian rate. We found 5 of them: Okinawa, Japan; Sardinia, Italy; Costa Rica, the Nicoya Peninsula; and the United States here, among the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California.
You're a tough man to please, Jon, by the way. So when I see you get this excited about something, it tells me something.
Yeah, I mean, I have mentioned Dan's work in pretty much every speech, every talk, every moderated panel I've done for the last several years, because I think he nailed it, which is, instead of trying to figure out, scientifically, what is it that will make somebody live longer, he just went out around the world, figured out where people already live longest, figured out what they're doing in common, and took that and then applied it to real places, starting with Albert Lea, Minnesota.
That's the first one,
is having amazing results. So I think this makes sense. And the concept, the philosophy, and I want you to talk about it, is, do you want people to always have to be making smart health decisions, or do you just want them to trip over an environment, live in an environment, and trip over healthy behavior, trip over a healthy environment?
So Dan, you wrote the blue zones and now the blue zones solution. First of all, what do these diets? Is there a common denominator to these diets that are effective?
So Blue Zone Solution did a meta-analysis, so a worldwide average of what 100-year-olds were eating for a century, and then averaged it out. We found that, first of all, they're eating mostly a plant-based diet, about 90%, but it's also a very high-carb diet. About 65% of their caloric intake are things like whole grains, corn, sweet potatoes in Okinawa, and beans are the cornerstone of every longevity diet in the world. But the reality is food is just the runway to these bigger ideas. And the big epiphany in these blue zones is that longevity wasn't something individuals pursued. It was an outgrowth of having the right environment. And what we're doing in America here with these blue zone projects is tweaking the environments that people live in so they don't have to think about being healthier.
And Jon, the problem here in the U.S. is just these big, bad, empty calories that people are cheap.
Processed foods, people can have carbohydrates, but if they're highly processed, then they're not as helpful. I remember in the original book, in the Blue Zone book, the behaviors, I was so fascinated by the things that they had in common that were linked to longevity. So they were things like...
Oh, here, up on the screen right now, there's some interesting examples, right? Greece, olive oil, wild greens; Japan, tofu, sweet potatoes; Italy, barley and fennel; in the U.S., salmon and oatmeal; Costa Rica, squash and yam.
But they're also behaviors, right?
So having a strong sense of purpose is worth 8 extra years of life expectancy. Having a social group with at least 5 friends you can count on a bad day is worth about 7 years of extra life expectancy. These are the things that matter more than diet. Again, we just talked about the food to get people interested, so we could segue them into the
So
bigger
they did include goat's milk and some red wine, right? Things like that people don't have here. But also exercise, right? Living outdoors. And this island of Ikaria off of Greece, right?
Off of Greece.
There's almost no dementia there. There's almost no dementia. Why? Why is that?
What's the explanation?
Well, first of all, the purest form of the Mediterranean diet in the world, which is sort of a blue zone diet, but also they drank 3 teas, a rosemary, a sage, and a mint that we had tested that were actually anti-inflammatories and diuretics, which...
They make you pee. So
yes, and lower blood pressure over time. Right. So that may explain it. We just know what happens. And Ikaria, anybody who's studying dementia out there should go to Ikaria. We found 10,000 people with maybe 10% the rate of dementia we have here in the United States.
I heard someone say once that if your great-great-grandmother or grandfather ate it, eat it. In other words, if you could prepare it 100+ years ago, then it's probably okay to eat.
I like that.
If it's a 20th or 21st century invention, there's a decent chance there's something in it you probably shouldn't be eating.
Well, the corollary of that is that if you're reading the label and it's something your grandmother would not understand. 2,4-dinitrophenylhydrazine. Maybe I shouldn't be
Don't eat
eating that. The other thing about changing the environment was that you can make it actually fun. So there is this project, and we talk about in Stockholm, where, and it's actually a Volkswagen commercial of all things, but they had this project where they showed an escalator and they showed a staircase at a train station, I guess. And at the beginning, everybody's going up the escalator. Nobody's taking the stairs. Then they replaced the stairs with a piano keys, like in the movie Big. And by the end, everybody's playing on the piano keys. They're going up and down.
Yeah.
So if you can make it fun, somebody talked, an architect I spoke to, about putting the cafeterias in schools on the top floor, so kids have to walk up to do it. So just being smart about how you design things, again, so people trip over good behavior. Alice Waters, the famous chef, talked to me about making food just more fun so that it actually is tasty, taking kids into gardens and having them pick vegetables right off the vines.
Our corollary in the cities in Iowa, we work with Wellmark there, and they've created a complete streets policy where every new street now has to be designed not just for cars, but for humans, with wider sidewalks, trees, and bike paths. So making streets just a little bit funner, or more fun, you can get a significant percentage of people more active.
So much food for thought.
I get it.
Dan Buettner,
Beans.
Pardon my corniness.
Another food reference.
Dr. Jon LaPook, excellent to see both of you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.